Alright everybody, welcome to another video of DUHowto. This time what we're going to do today is we're actually going to take the cover off the trailer, get it ready for use this summer. We're going to take off the cover, we're going to service the tires, we're going to put the propane bottle on, the battery on, all those kinds of things that you got to do at the end of the long winter. Is most of us campers know it's always too long, summer's always too short. But we're going to get started with this process, and then later on we're going to show you, I'll separate these videos out so people can pick and choose which ones they like or which ones they need to see. We're going to show you how to set a trailer, how to flush it, get all the antifreeze out of it, how to level it and set it up, tips and tricks on your propane bottles and batteries and things like that. So let's get started. Okay, so the next part we got to do, we got the cover off. As you see, there's a tennis ball up there, and you see that cord going over the top. What that is that's a gutter protector. And the idea is, as the wind blows, your cover will get tore up. Now you can buy these commercially, and I don't know, they run 20 or 30 bucks. All I did was take some tennis balls, there you go, and some paracord, cut a square hole to go over the gutter, poked a hole in the back and tied the paracord through, and then we just laced it over the top and we put it to bed. So keep an inexpensive gutter guard. Okay, so we got the tire covers off, we serviced the tires. If you're curious, where you find your tire inflation information on most trailers is on the driver's side, up front somewhere, either on the front quarter of the box or maybe along the front frame rail. But up there somewhere there'll be a placard that will tell you your tire sizes and then your cold inflation pressures. So, and don't be surprised if they're a little higher than what you're used to in like your cars. This trailer right here runs 75 psi per tire. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to install the battery, and we're going to install the propane cylinder. Tips on installing batteries, storing and installing batteries. First of all, store battery, I store mine on plastic shelves. You can store them on wood. Do not store them directly on concrete. And they prefer you not do it on steel as well. Plastic seems to be the best. They come in these plastic cases anyways. So just take that whole thing out. And you'll want to put a battery tender on it. You're going to want to keep it in good condition through the winter. When you go to hook it up, obviously red is hot and black is common. You want to hook the hot side up first. And the reason you want to do this is, if you hook up the hot side and you're turning your wrench, if you've already got your negative hooked up, if you touch any piece of metal that's grounded, you'll get a short. If you hook the hot first, the only place you can get a short is on the negative terminal. So you just protect that with one hand as you tighten that up, and then you can feel ease and comfort of putting this one on, because it doesn't matter what you touch other than that post, you're not going to create a short. So hooking up the battery, basics there. Hooking up your propane cylinder. Inside your propane tank, let's see if I can get a good picture of this for you. Inside of there's an O-ring. And it's not going to let me show it to you, but there's an O-ring in there. You want to inspect that O-ring and make sure that it's not torn. You want to make sure there's no cobwebs, spider webs, anything like that living inside your tank or your connection here. You also want to look inside the other side of your connection, make sure that you didn't have anything make a nest in there through the winter, particularly inside that tiny little hole. You want to make sure that that's clear. These were all stored and tucked up underneath the cover, so I'm pretty confident nothing got in there. So we'll go ahead and make all these connections and tighten the tanks down and make sure that they're all secure. And then after that, it's time to move it to a site, and the rest of this is going to be how to drain the antifreeze out of your lines, how to make sure you get it all out so you don't wind up with a small section someplace. I know some people, they'll they'll just hook up the city water connection and flush it that way, which is fine. But remember, if you serviced it with a winterizing kit, there's a small section of line there before your water pump that's still going to have antifreeze in it. So the best method to get the antifreeze out is to just run water in the way you ran the antifreeze in and just let it push it all the way out through your drains. And we'll show you a little more of that once we get it all on the site and ready to go. Okay, everybody, I apologize. It was a rough day yesterday getting this out of storage and getting it on the site. But I wanted to pick up with, so what do you do when you get to your site? Well, the first thing you need to do is level your trailer. And with most trailers, travel trailers, you level them by shimming the wheels. And you can see these red wedge-shaped blocks underneath my tires here. This side showed being low. Now, the way I do this, and this is a great little tool. Not quite level here. I guess my tongue's down a little bit. But when you turn this system on, it has an app that it communicates with. And after you install it and calibrate it and everything, then what it will do is it will tell you whether one side of your trailer, let me see if I can get that for you, one side of your trailer is high or low, if the tongue's high or low, and then you know where to put your shims. And I like these because I simply put these behind the tire there, and as I pull backwards I can watch the app, and the app will tell me when my wheels are level. Now the reason you want to do that is these are stabilizers. These are not jacks. They're not designed to lift the weight of your trailer. They're simply designed to give it stability. I apologize, I got hiccups again today. How about that? They're designed to stabilize it so it doesn't rock too much, stays pretty level and all that. So when you get to your site, you figure out exactly where you want it. Other methods, you don't have to use these. I like these because this Levelmate Pro system can be calibrated to level your vehicle within 1/4 of an inch. Most people don't carry wood 1/4 inch thick. They're carrying 2 by something, so 3/4 inch or something like that. So 3/4 of an inch at a time is what you get. With these, you have an infinite amount. You can go, you know, 1/8 of an inch up to about 4 inches, it looks like. And if you have to go more than that, they simply put wood underneath them and go up higher. So these are really good. I like these. Note, I did see a trailer earlier today that was using this system, but they only used it on one of the 2 axles. You need to use it on both of your axles. If you have a dual axle, you need to have one of these systems under each axle, you know, under each tire to raise the whole thing up. But after you do that, you get it level side to side. Then you go to the tongue, and you, let me see if I can get you a shot here. I'm just kind of relaxing in this windy day. And then you use your tongue jack, and that tongue jack will level you front to back. And then, of course, once your front to back is good, then you can start lowering your stabilizers. And I put pads underneath mine, even though I'm on concrete, you know, it's just to preserve the paint and stuff on the jacks. They won't scratch up near as bad if they're on plastic versus the asphalt or concrete or whatever, or even dirt, if that's what you're camping on. So then you run those down, stabilize everything. Now, the manufacturers give you these hand crank, you know, it looks like you're starting a Model 4 type thing. They also sell an adapter that you can put in an electric drill. And I do use that system, but be very, very careful, because if you just keep running it or you run it in an impact, you'll actually damage the stabilizers. Once you have firm pressure, and the way I do it with a drill is, as I run it down, as soon as the trailer starts to lift, I stop. And then I go to the next one and I do the same thing. And that will put you in a position where, you know, they're good and solid. It doesn't rock too much. You may get a little rock, but, you know, you can expect that. This thing is not built on a foundation. It's portable, so a little rock is no big deal. Now, what is the importance of leveling your trailer? Well, there's several reasons why you need it level. Most people realize the obvious one, your plumbing lines. Your plumbing lines run downhill to your tanks, except for your toilets, which go straight in, but your sinks and your showers and all that will run downhill. If your trailer's not level, you don't know if it's running downhill or not. Draining your tanks is the same way. The drains are set at the lowest point of the tank and go lower as you leave. It's not a lot, maybe an inch, but if you're out of level, side to side by an inch, that may hinder you being able to clean out your tanks, and then you start getting these obnoxious smells in your lavatories. So that part being, it's very important to level it. Also, and most people don't realize this, if you have a residential refrigerator, you're generally pretty good. If your refrigerator can run off of propane, propane works a little bit differently than your standard electrical compressor systems. It actually just heats the refrigerant with a flame. In a refrigeration system, you need to have liquid only in certain parts of the system and vapors in other parts. You start getting vapors or liquid into the wrong part of your system, and you can do some very serious damage. And sometimes that's very touchy on the refrigeration systems on your refrigerator. It's propane. If you have a roof AC, that's electrical. It has got valves that separate them. But on a propane system, you have a metering valve, which is just a small hole in there that allows the liquid to vaporize into a gas. Well, if it's not level, it can actually flow through there. And then when you turn it on, you have liquid in the wrong place. So you want to be very careful of that as well. So here's that Levelmate Pro system I was talking about. It's just a small little module, and the instructions are real good on telling you how to install it. But essentially, you just mount it. You get it pretty level, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And then when you program it, you tell it, whether it's side to side or whether it was oriented, so one side was towards the front of the trailer pack. And then once you mechanically use levels, and you see I have one in there, in case the battery dies on this. Once you get it perfectly level, then you tell it this is level. So it's a pretty good system. Little switch on the bottom. If you forget to turn it off, it turns off in 15 minutes, so you don't have to worry about losing batteries. So pretty neat system. Okay, here we have the water connections. Now we're bringing this camper out of storage, and I'll do a video in the fall of how to winterize it. But when you're removing the antifreeze that you put in the system, you really want to take it out the same way you put it in. But I will make one exception to that. I have seen videos where people will take a funnel and pour antifreeze down into their freshwater tank and then pump that through their rig. You certainly can do that. You can certainly, not have, protect your water lines and so forth through the winter time. The problem is, in the summer, or when you go to take it out of storage, you have to get all that antifreeze back out of that tank. Now the system I use is called a winterizing kit, and it just has a selector valve going to the pump. One position will take water from the fresh water tank. The other position will take whatever you want through a hose. You can just drop a bucket or a bottle in there and draw the antifreeze in. Well, in the spring, when you go take it out, you actually want to take a freshwater container of whatever kind and run that at least a half a gallon. The reason for that is there's a section of line between your pump and where it tees into your city water connection. And that may be a foot long, and that may be 3 feet long, maybe longer, depending on the manufacturer. If you just took water up and flush it with this, that section of line is still going to have antifreeze in it. And then if you go out later and you start using your holding tank, not thinking about it, you could suddenly be taking a shower and get doused with antifreeze. It could be, pouring water into a coffee pot and get a bunch of antifreeze in it. Hopefully you catch it. The commercial stuff is supposedly non-toxic, but I don't know anybody who wants to eat, drink, or wear antifreeze. So I recommend you get a winterizing kit installed, because that takes far less antifreeze than pouring it into a tank like this. I can winterize this coach. Now this is a 21-foot Springdale, 1 bathroom. The water basically runs from this quarter all the way around halfway up the other side, and I can winterize this with a gallon or a gallon and a half of antifreeze each year. So winterizing cost is really cheap if you have a winterizing kit, a diverter kit. So first thing you want to do then is, run fresh water through your pump. Once you're sure the pump is clean, then you can go ahead and hook up your city water connection, hook it up to the service, and flush everything thoroughly. I always recommend you flush hot and cold till everything is clear and clean out of all the faucets, out of everything, toilets, everything, before you take your water heater out of bypass. And it's just to help make sure that you've got everything out and you don't wind up trapping anything in the system somewhere. So that will clean out all the bypass lines, and then when you when you go to regular city water, you're just filling up an empty tank versus those several feet of hose around your water heater that may still have antifreeze in them because they're a bypass line. So fresh water through the pump, hook up to your city water connection, flush everything thoroughly. Then you can go ahead and turn the bypass valves on your water heater, and then go ahead and run your water again, because you're going to have a lot of air in there. And then after that, your water connection should be good to go. Okay, so here we are at the city water connection here at the park. And I want to show you a few things that I've added to my system and I recommend. First is, in the system, is I have a brass, and you can get these at really anywhere. It's a brass Y. I think I got this one at Myers or Walmart or somewhere, and that allows me to hook a second hose up to the system, maybe if I need more pressure. But usually what I use that for is cleaning out my black water tanks. But I don't have that water hooked up right now, just because I don't want to run a risk of backflow, which would allow bacteria into the water system. So I leave that off while I'm camping, and I only connect it when I go to leave. The next you see, and I highly recommend these, this is a water pressure regulator. And you can get the kind that are just like a cartridge that screws in and you screw your hose into. They don't tell you a lot, and they're not controllable. On this one, I mean, you never know what city water pressure is going to be where you're going. That's not up, generally it's not up to the park, it's up to the city municipality, and how many towers they have and how full they are and all that. Here you can adjust a maximum amount of pressure, and I have this one set actually at, I think, 50 psi. Right now it's showing just over 40, which is fine. There's plenty of pressure in this unit. I've got some nice nozzles in my shower and things like that, so really I got nice aerated nozzles, so it makes your shower nice. But you don't want to over pressurize your rig. Now, I was actually told when I bought this trailer that I had a pressure regulator mounted inside the wall where my city water connection is. That wasn't true, and I don't think it ever is true. The only thing mounted in there is just a check valve. And the purpose of that check valve is if you're using your water tank and there isn't a check valve in there, when you're turning your water pump on, your water's going to be shooting out the side of your camper. So you really need a pressure regulator just to protect your rig. And then the next thing you'll see is I got a filtration system, and you can get these anywhere as well. But I've used this from day one, and from day one, not this filter, but a filter. You can, if you've got high carbon, if you got, or you got sulfur, you got whatever. They make them to do all kinds of different things. They make some high flow ones. They make, so depending on how much money you want to spend. But I recommend that because that helps keep all your lines and faucets and everything clear. It doesn't allow any kind of solids to build up. So I highly recommend those. I also have, and I didn't get the other one out, but as you see, my water hose is white, has a blue stripe, but it's white. Okay. The other hose that I use for cleaning out my septic system, just to make sure I don't get them crossed, is actually orange. And the thing that makes that neat is my sewer connections are orange as well. So that just reinforces this is for sewer, this is for water. So you don't want to get those two backwards. Okay, power connections. This particular camper has quite a long cord that's actually stored inside the side of the camper. You can pull it out, run it to your utility. Make sure if you have this style that you pull all of that cable out. If you leave it coiled up in there where it can stay nice and clean, on a hot day with your ACs running and all that kind of stuff, that wire will get warm, will get hot, and that wire will decay. And the last thing you want to do is have to replace one of those. So as you can see over here, I just got it kind of strewn around on the ground, meandering here and there, a few coils right there. That's just to put it out in the open air and help keep it cool. Another thing, when you are making your connection in your electrical box, turn the circuit breaker off before plugging in or unplugging your power. Okay, the reason for that is if there's, and there will be some things, your DC inverters for instance, you can't shut them off. You go to plug it in, it's immediately going to try to draw power, and as you plug that plug in, it will actually arc on the plug. You probably won't ever notice it until it's too late. So you want to turn the circuit breaker off, plug your rig in. Once it's fully plugged in, turn it on. Surge protectors. They make a lot of nice surge protectors. This camper has a power management system in it. That power management system actually monitors the voltage, the amperage, the frequency or hertz, and tells you if there's any errors. It will test the ground, it will test the common. It makes sure that the power going in is correct before it actually allows it to go any further than the management system. They make some nice ones that are just, pigtail extension cord. You put that into your power, plug your cord into it, and those do a real good job of surge protection. They don't necessarily monitor your power like my system does, but they certainly are better than nothing. And if you don't want to spend a couple $100 for a power management system, you can get away with 50-60 bucks for a good surge protector, and you're protected at least from surges. But if your rig has the kind where it plugs in the side of the rig and then plugs into the power box, obviously you don't have to worry about heat buildup on those. So just make sure you try not to coil things up too much. Try to keep them out of direct sunlight, that kind of stuff. So special notation, I'll probably show you the power management system, and I may not. I'm kind of tired today. So we'll see. I'll at least show you the display. Then of course your last connection will be your sewer line, or your drain line, as we call them, stinky slinkies. And that's pretty self-explanatory. I have a nice clean out adapter on mine where I can actually hook that other water hose to, and I would do that without running a risk of contaminating the rest of the system, because I won't hook that water up until the fresh water system is no longer connected, and I can make sure I can flush everything out. But then it just comes back to your receptacle in the ground, if I can find it, and there it is. I like having the clear connectors because it gives me an idea, if the water's coming out clean or if it's coming out with some sort of an issue. So, and we can flush them repeatedly. We have a wand that we can put inside the black water tank and help rinse all that out. This actually blows water in from the flush out that I have on this. Actually blows water in from just where it connects to the side of the trailer. It actually shoots a water stream in there, so I can turn it on agitate everything in that tank really good, and then shut it off, and everything will just free flow back out. So that is the basic connections for a travel trailer connection. I have some other options. One of the options is, if I'm parked underneath a tree, I actually have a ground satellite system that I can just set up, and the wire runs into the side of the trailer on the front near the door, and it has a cable that you can lock to the trailer so it can't just get up and walk away in the middle of the night. Not that that's ever happened to anybody, but so that's really setting up, leveling, getting it back into service and going. And I hope nobody copied my license plate number there. But yeah, that's the gist of it. It's not rocket science. It's not hard. You want to develop a system, so you just do a routine. Our routine is park it, level it, stabilize it, power it, put the water to it. You can even wait for a day or two to hook up your sewer line, because you're not going to need it right away. I do recommend you thoroughly clean your tanks before you leave anywhere, just because you don't want that building up as you go down the road. So, okay, we're in the lavatory on my rig right now. I wanted to show you this power management system, at least the display of it. The actual system is mounted underneath there on that side. The water heater is over there, and this is corresponding to the outside is where the power cord comes out. But this system will sit there and scroll through, telling you what your status is: 125 volts, 4 amps, 60 hertz, no errors. Now, this will not allow power to go to your rig unless you correct the issue, or there is a switch on there, and if you know what you're doing, you can put it in bypass mode. I do not recommend doing that unless you truly understand the risks to your rig. It does not bypass the surge protector. It only bypasses the standards of, do you have the right voltage, do you have the right hertz, if you go over on amps, and it will tell you, it will come up with an error code, and I have a little card up in the vanity in the bathroom that tells me what each one means. And you correct it, talk to the park about correcting it if it's common is bad or ground is bad or whatever. But if you absolutely have to have power and you understand the risk, you can put it in bypass mode, and it will ignore the volt, amp, hertz. Is it grounded? Does it have a good common? It will ignore those. It won't ignore surge protection, and it will allow you to power your rig. But there's a risk to that, because if you have an issue where the hertz is off, for instance, you can burn up things. You can burn up electronics and things like that. So you really want to understand, and it will tell you what it is. Now, I mounted mine back here in the bathroom because you cannot turn that display off. The display continues to go 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the last thing I wanted to do was have it out in the kitchen or somewhere where it's going to keep people up at night. So it's back here in the bathroom. If you're back here, you're awake anyway. So, so that's the how-to on bringing it out of winterization, setting it up, getting ready to enjoy it. It is still early season. This is third week of April in northern Ohio. So when I actually came over here and took the cover off, there was snow on it. We had a snowstorm of 4 inches of snow just 3 days before we came camping. So one thing I am going to do, and I recommend you do this until there's no danger of freezing, when we go to leave today, instead of just unhooking the water, I'm actually going to take an air tank. I have an air tank with an air regulator, so it regulates the amount of pressure that goes through the lines. And we're just going to blow the water down the drains and just leave the lines empty. When we come back, we just have to purge the air out and go. Some people actually winterize their rig the same way. They don't actually use antifreeze. They just blow all the water out. There'll be a low point drain or 2 lower point drains on your rig somewhere. Find those. When there's no pressure on the system, just go ahead and open those up and let the water drain out. You also have one of those in your fresh water tank, so you want to drain that out too if you've been using it. So just leave it dry, and then once you get into weather where there's not going to any risk of freezing anymore, then you can just go for the summer and not have to worry about it until the fall. I choose to use antifreeze in the fall. I actually blow the air out first, or blow the water out first with air, and then I put in antifreeze. And the reason I do that is I want to keep the seals and everything lubricated. So it's not going to freeze, but it keeps the seals from drying out. And that makes everything last a little bit longer. You do want to be careful not to leave antifreeze in your shower or in your sinks or any place like that, because it can stain them, depending on the quality of sinks and so forth you have. I've not seen it stain toilets yet, because you do want to leave some in your toilet. Your shower, you definitely want to make sure you get it all out, because that stuff is very slippery, and you would hate to go take your first shower and wind up slipping completely out of the shower and land somewhere. So there's pros and cons to it both ways. I tend to do both. Put everything out when I go to winterize it. But come next month, we're into May and going into June, and we're not going to have any more freezing, or at least hard freezes. I just leave the water in and go like that. So hope you've enjoyed this video. Hope it's been helpful. Feel free to look out other videos I have on my channel. Until later, see ya.